there's a hadith that's considered authentic where Muhammad allegedly talks about his enemies and he says something like, forgive them for they do not know. It's just that's the gospel.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird? The first place they go to is in the heart of where the gospel is understood.
Yeah. Christianity was all through the Middle East.
Yeah.
The Islamic world is not the Islamic world. It is occupied land. It doesn't belong to Arabs. It belongs to Assyrians, Phoenicians, Copts. What I'm seeing in places like Kurdistan and Iran, they're throwing off Arabization, and long may it continue. Because when you were a Muslim, it would have been seen as unfitting or unseemly for you to marry an Arab woman.
Yeah, that's true.
That's racism. You have a lovely day, and thank you very much for being sincere and fair. Have a good day. God bless.
Well done, Bob.
It's an interesting thing you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was doubting Islam, I looked at the historical evidence, what we actually know about the spread of Islam.
Yeah.
And the first place they went to conquer was Jerusalem,
Yeah.
which is ruled by the Byzantines.
Yep.
A well-versed, literate, competent society which kept records.
Yep.
But the records of what happened bring the Islamic narrative of history into disrepute.
Yeah, they do.
Because I don't know if you've heard of a historian called Tom Holland.
Yeah, no halt.
He done some fantastic work on this. So they didn't actually have a name for a prophet. They didn't have a name for Muhammad at first. They didn't have a name for the religion. They described themselves as al-mu'mineen, the believers, but didn't say in what.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the first things they've done was they started praying on the Temple Mount, and the Christians of the Byzantine Empire that had just been conquered in that region, they first suspected it was some sort of Jewish conspiracy.
Yeah.
They had no idea this was a new religion or anything. They thought it was a Jewish messianic political plot, as had been done previously against like the Roman Emperor Hadrian, where they took Jerusalem before Christianity was. They thought it was something like that again. But what's interesting is there's no mention of the name Muhammad. There's no azan. So the whole Islamic history goes into disrepute because the actual people that were there documented it. Said, we don't know who they follow. We don't know the name of their religion. There's no adhan. The whole Islamic story goes into disrepute because they made the mistake of, I think for political reasons, the first place they went to conquer was a literate, competent society that kept records.
Yeah, and the other problem is that when you look at the hadiths and the emergence of hadiths emerged organically. They didn't emerge by a deliberate decision of the community. They kind of stumbled into it. And so most of your hadiths start to emerge 100 years after Muhammad. And that means that you've got this 100-year gap in which literally anybody can make up anything.
It's like recently we were saying to that young man about them being added over time. For example, there's a hadith that's considered authentic where Muhammad allegedly talks about his enemies and he says something like, forgive them for they do not know. And I was thinking, that
sounds strangely familiar, doesn't it?
That's the gospel. Isn't it weird? The first place they go to is in the heart of where the gospel is understood. And that's what they come up with in that time span when they're being compiled.
Another example, and a lot. So the hadiths are created for a number of different reasons. One of them is to answer legal questions. Because Islam, because it was it's like a cheap man's knockoff of Judaism. It basically is a very legalistic religion. And once the Arabs expanded beyond the Arabian Peninsula, you've got different parts of the world suddenly having to answer, okay, how do we establish Islam? And so you get these different rulings being made, but these rulings had to be justified somehow. And so you get these really random hadiths like, and I'm going to make something up now, not a real hadith. So, something like, oh, and I remember that the Prophet used to suck the bone of a chicken. And it's just that one, it'll be just like one little factoid that's completely out of nowhere, that stands totally in isolation. And it's like, who the hell remembers that? Why would you remember that? But the reason why that is remembered is because it plays into a debate about fiqh, it plays into a debate about Sharia. And so that's one driving.
As you go along.
Exactly. The other one is as propaganda. So the famous one, Sahih al-Bukhari, where they talk about Heraclius wanting to convert to Islam. And they give the game away because somehow the hadith has access to private correspondence between the emperor and his friend over back in Rome, as well as his private meditations and thoughts. How the hell does someone in a hadith chain get to know the private contemplations of the Roman enemy who's fighting a war against Muslims. So this hadith was created as propaganda to try and demoralize Christians. So that's another reason. And the hadith that I just quoted about Waraka, that hadith is a propaganda hadith. Its real audience is the Christians and the Jews. Because they're trying to line Muhammad up.
Political reasons.
Yeah, it's a propaganda piece.
When they were around Jerusalem and that region.
Yeah.
To get them on side.
Yeah.
Because even like you see with coin minting, Muhammad's name doesn't appear anywhere until at least just over 60 years after he's supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
That's the first time his name actually appears somewhere. There's no, the first time they conquered, there was no Shahada documented, there was no Muhammad's name documented, there was no name for the religion. They were Arab conquerors, and no one knew who they were.
Well, you look at the first pact that was done, the Pact of Medina. You look at the treatise in the Pact of Medina. The Pact of Medina describes the Jews and the Muslims as a single ummah.
Yeah.
Right? Which obviously contradicts Islamic teaching.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So clearly, Islam that Muslims know today comes after the original form of Islam, the proto-Islam that existed inside Arabia.
So Tom Holland asked the question, and out of all the different historians' accounts and explanations for Islamic history, I think his is probably the most efficient I've read. He said, we're told this story of Islam...
Do you want to go grab a drink?
Can in a minute, yeah.
Yeah.
We're told this story of Islam beginning, and then the Arabs had an empire. It birthed the Arab Empire. But actually, was it in fact the Arabs who started an empire, and then to fill the gaps, they birthed the idea of Islam for political and economic reasons? I do think it was the latter.
Well, you see, me and you disagree here, but we're going to have a proper academic disagreement.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I believe that there was a proto-Islam.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There was a proto-Islam by an Arab prophet who either was called Muhammad or was at least had the title Muhammad.
Like me, yeah.
Right?
That's what I believe.
And this proto-Islam didn't look like the Islam that we now encounter in the park. It was more of an ethno-Arabic...
Unite the tribes.
Yeah, unite the tribes in Islam, and really Islam is just... The Islam of that Muhammad was really just a kind of... Almost like it's copied over Judaism. It was copied over Judaism.
Motive.
Well,
because if you think about
I don't think you can separate politics and religion that clearly back then. I think they're basically the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we can't say it was political, because political and religious motives were the same.
One of the reasons I say that is because if you think about where we're talking Arabia in the 7th century, the neighbours you've got the big Byzantine Christian Empire one side, you've got the Persian Zoroastrians on the other. Who are the Arabs? They're basically seen as nobodies on the world stage at that point. They're seen as nomads, nothing relevant. They don't, they don't have any standing.
But whoever this Muhammad was, I believe that he was influenced by Christianity.
What was around him. And we see that in the Quran.
But the thing is, Christianity had well penetrated the Arabian Peninsula. It was coming south through the Assyrians, and it was coming north through the Ethiopians. Are you telling me that when you got a Christian colony settled in the southern part of the peninsula, Christians in the northern part of the peninsula, that there's not going to be Christians travelling between and up and down the region?
I don't know if you know that. I sent this to JC actually. Of in the UAE, there was some archaeological works done, and they found old crosses. They're about 1,400 years old. In what's now Dubai, UAE. So they're pretty sure that region was a Christian settlement. Well, Christianity
was all through the Middle East. Anyone who says that the Islamic world is the Islamic world, but then criticises Western colonialism, is a moron. Islamic world is not the Islamic world. It is occupied land. It doesn't belong to Arabs. It belongs to Assyrians, Phoenicians, Copts, Berbers, and countless Kurds, and Yazidis, and countless other groups who all became the victims of an Arab Islamist colonial project. And what I'm seeing in places like Kurdistan and Iran, like the Persians, is that they're throwing off Arabization. They're throwing off Arabization, and long may it continue. And Islam is such that even in Turkey, most Turks are actually just Greeks. They're just Greeks who haven't done a DNA test. But if they do a DNA test, they're going to work out that they're actually Greeks who've been Turkified.
Yeah.
Because when the Muslims, when the Turks embraced Islam, they also embraced its ethnic imperialism.
Yeah.
And they Turkified a whole bunch of Greeks.
They took a lot of concubines as well,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even, have you seen the photos of what would be the sons and daughters of what was the caliphs? Have you seen them, how they look? They're all like blonde hair, blue eyes. They look like a bunch of German teenagers.
I think that's the introverted racism that you find in the hadiths. Because Muhammad looked like a white man, according to the hadith.
Oh yeah, he was fair-skinned.
Fair-skinned, white.
Yeah.
White sides, white belly, white palms of hands, white underarms.
Yeah.
Like the guy ain't.
White reddish.
Yeah,
skin,
yeah, exactly. So according to the hadiths, and I remember once debating in this park, and I pointed that out, and then some of the Muslims said, no, Muhammad was black, and then another Muslim got offended by the idea that Muhammad should be described as black. Yeah. And they ended up arguing with one another.
Yeah,
you know, and I think that's quite telling about the kind of the sub-racism that flows in Islam. Because when you were a Muslim, according to certain books of fiqh in the Shafi school of law, you wouldn't have been allowed to marry. It would have been seen as unfitting or unseemly for you to marry an Arab woman.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And even,
that's racism.
And even the incident, supposedly, according to hadith, Muhammad was walking, I think in Medina, he come across an Arab man, discovered he was a slave, so he bought his freedom for the price of 2 male black slaves.
Yeah.
He set a price. Yeah. It took 2 black male slaves to buy 1 Arab man.
Yeah. And so, if that's the kind of economy that Muhammad established.
And then we see for 1,400 years, a constant stem of African slaves going into the Arabian Peninsula.
Which nobody ever talks about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their economy was dependent.
Where's all the reparations that people are calling for from the Arab world?
I said that to Mr. IC3. I said, when people talk about reparations, no one ever talks about even Qatar. I found this online and I checked if it was real, and it was. It was an American-made documentary from the 1960s, just before they banned it. An open-air slave market where they had naked Africans brought in, all being inspected to be sold in the middle of the town, surrounded by tents. Yeah. It was mainstream practice. The economy was dependent on it. Because they weren't builders, they weren't doing maths, science, they didn't have oil there.
They get the slaves to do it.
Yeah.
And this is the point. Like, people criticize me because I viciously criticize Islam. But the point is, what's your alternative? To turn a blind eye to the re-establishment of slavery, to turn a blind eye to child marriage, to turn a blind eye to apostasy laws, to all those things that me and you used to argue about.
Yeah, I know.
Right, when you were a Muslim. Like, are we just supposed to ignore that Islam stands for those things? Or are we going to deal with Islam on Islamic terms?
We can't, because they're not winning the intellectual argument, so they're just getting more internalized and becoming more literal.
Yeah.
And that's the issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we see them here do mental gymnastics to try and justify marriage to a 6-year-old.
I mean, as you've just seen, Muslims just run in this park now.
Yeah.
Like, they can't defend anything when we challenge them.
I know, yeah.
So we Christians have won this park because Muslims, they run from all of our debaters. They only want to debate people that can't debate, and anyone that can debate, who gets a reputation as a good debater, they run away from. Anyway, Billy, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm looking forward to you getting invited to your baptism.
I sent you an email.
Let's grab a coffee. Let's grab a coffee. I mean, we could go for one now if you've got time.
Yeah, that's okay.
Shall we go now?
Yeah.
All right, let's grab a coffee now.